Hey,
I can barely read.
good to have everyone here with us. We were just seeing all of the fun comments and hellos on there. We love hearing from everybody. So I am Jackie with Hub City Bookshop, and I just saw someone saying they have a dog and a kid on her lap. So that's perfect. Enjoy your time at home. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat window, or there's actually an ask a question button, which is pretty cool. And you can vote on questions. So if somebody asks a question that you also want to know the answer to, you can vote that question to the top of the list. And we'll take that in about 30, 40 minutes. I also have a cat in my lap, so I'm sorry if she gets in the way. So we're welcoming Pete Beatty and George Singleton today. So we're going to let them chat for a few minutes. First, I'll introduce them. So Pete Beatty is a Cleveland area native. He has taught writing at Kent State University and the University of Alabama. He currently teaches at the University of Alabama, and he lives with his wife in Tuscaloosa. Cuyahoga is his first novel. George Singleton has published 8 collections of stories, 2 novels, and a book of writing advice. Over 200 of his stories have appeared in magazines such as the Atlantic Monthly, Harper's, Playboy, the Georgia Review, the Southern Review, the Cincinnati Review, and elsewhere. He is the recipient of a Pushcart Prize, a Guggenheim Fellowship, the Hillsdale Award for the Fellowship of Southern Writers, and the Corrington Award for Literary Excellence. And he lives in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Thank you both for joining us online today. We're super excited to hear from you. And I think I'll pass it off to George now and let you guys chat.
All right. Thanks, Jackie.
All right, Jackie. Thank you so much. All right, Pete, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I got one question for you, buddy. You know, I've never met you. I don't know you. Read your novel. I loved it. I want to know what kind of drugs you were taking when you were writing that novel and where I can get those drugs.
Well, it's a good news, bad news situation here. I was actually stone cold sober the entire time, with the exception of caffeine, I guess. The one of the handful of socially acceptable brain altering substances that we use in this country. I should say legally acceptable. They're socially very acceptable to be fucked up in all kinds of ways.
Let me ask you this. Cuyahoga takes place in 1837 and then the first day of 1838. Did you do a ton of research for that? I mean, you had to. I mean, the language. I mean, I had to go look up. This may be a thing that churchgoers know. I don't know this term. I think it's, I wrote it down. BANNS, bands.
Bands.
I don't know that term. It's like some kind. And then I looked it up, and it's like people are going to get married. They go to a church, and 3 Sundays in a row, people say, "Is there any reason for these people not to get?" Am I just stupid? And I mean, I'm 63. You'd think I would somehow come across that.
You're just not from the 1830s.
Well,
we still, that still exists in the tradition of the, the officiant asking if anybody here objects to this union, speak now or forever hold their peace. But back in the day when weddings were not necessarily about love first, but about, sort of the partnership of families, there was a chance for people to sound off and say like, heck no, they shouldn't get married or, I did do. Go ahead. I did do a lot of research. Most of it was, I'm a history guy. I love history, but I think one of the fun things about history is screwing stuff up and sort of mixing things around a little bit. So I read a ton of material from the 19th century. I will not pretend that every single word in here is period appropriate. Anything that I was unsure about, I checked on the OED to make sure there was a usage. But really, I just read lots and lots and lots of newspapers from the 1830s to get a sense of the kind of fustian, big, overinflated syntax of the period, and then the vernacular stuff. A lot of that came from almanacs and folktales and things like that. Places where you had what used to be called Southwestern humor, as in like Arkansas humor.
Yeah, well, I thought it was freaking amazing. Talking about there's a section about in the middle of the novel where people mess up in the novel, and so they say, well, boy, that's I forget some of the names, that's a Smith, he did a real Smith, or he did a real, whatever.
Yes, yeah.
Stovepipe or something like that. You must have had just a lot of fun. I've always thought that, you can tell when a writer's having fun writing, and that makes it fun for the readers. So that was, like the Almanac went about halfway through also when, y'all who hadn't read this, the main character, the narrator is named Medium Son, but he goes by Mead. And he's telling the tale of his big brother, who's known as Big Son, or just Big. And it's just fun to read. Talk about and Big and the Almanac. It's all about tall tales and stuff. Did you have a big tall tale influence in your life? Did you write a bunch of? Did you read a bunch of Paul Bunyan and stuff like that when you were a kid?
What really got me actually was something that is old. It was old enough to be my dad's sort of childhood pop culture, which is the Disney Davy Crockett movies with Fess Parker. Yeah. With the sort of the incredibly earwormy theme song that I won't horrify you all by attempting to sing, right?
Davy Crockett,
King of the Wild Frontier. Right? And they were actually kind of a gateway drug to. So I was obsessed with Davy Crockett when I was a kid, and I had a coonskin hat and like one of those cheap, tourist trap wooden muskets, and all this stuff. And as my brain sort of started to finally, harden a little bit, and I, started to learn a little bit more about what American history probably looked like, and learned that, the Alamo wasn't, there was really no reason for Davy Crockett to be at the Alamo other than looking for a chance to kill people, and sort of stir shit up, and learning more about just how constructed their mythologies were just kind of really lit my brain up. Davy Crockett himself is an incredibly fascinating figure. He was a best-selling author, a congressman, hilarious, a very, very funny public speaker, and also sort of like a freebooter, a filibuster, who was running around looking for trouble. And that was the one that really I'd always been thinking about for years and years and years. There was do a little bit of like Proustian excavation here. I remember somehow my parents got roped into one of those like timeshare sales conferences where it's like, come listen to our sales pitch, and we'll give you a free microwave or whatever. Yeah. And they showed some video that had Fess Parker, that had Davy Crockett, the actor who played Davy Parker, saying buy this piece of crap condo in wherever in Destin, Florida. And I remember having two things happened. I'm having this thought of, wait a minute, why is Davy Crockett old? Why is he trying to sell us like a condo? And then simultaneously, my dad was getting into an argument because he realized the whole thing was just a waste of time and a scam, and he was trying to leave. And the guy running it wouldn't let us leave. So it's just a formative memory that tall tales are, if not the same as, they're a kind of con. They're a grift as much as anything else.
And I wrote you this yesterday, I guess, but when I started reading your novel, it said blah blah blah, Davy Crockett, Paul Bunyan, Mike Fink, and I went, what the fuck, Mike Fink? He's my neighbor right next door. He lives like right there, and he's from Ohio.
He's a half man, half alligator, Mike Fink.
And then I wrote, I was talking to my buddy, this buddy of mine named Ron Rash. I said, you ever heard of Mike Fink, some kind of legend? He goes, yeah, I know about Mike Fink, the oarsman or whatever. So, golly. So that's cool. And so anyway, Cuyahoga is about that. Let me look at this. Okay, I'm going to get in trouble for this one, but my next question is, speaking of tall tales, you have quite a knowledge of the Bible. And I consider the Bible the greatest book of tall tales of all time, with burning bushes and virgin births and Lazarus, which shows up later in the novel, and all that stuff. So what did you were you brought up to a churchgoer who knows all this, or did you study the Bible, or did you do like I do and just open it up and put your finger down and say, oh yeah, that sounds like something good to write about right now?
It's a combination of things. I was cradle Catholic, but then I stopped going when I was as soon as I was confirmed, and then sort of actually through writers, through Thomas Merton and Flannery O'Connor, and the sort of great sort of mid 20th century Catholic weirdos, found myself pulled back to it, and then just sort of made a study of it. And the thing that informed both the stories in the book and the sort of biblical echoes that are in it, and the language, was listening to the King James Bible on audiobook, literally as my shockingly, I was single, just playing this audiobook to put myself to sleep. But yeah, it is. I do think that the Bible in a lot of ways is this book of depending on, it doesn't matter whether you think it's the word of God written in fire, or it's a wonderful human thing created by people, or if you think it's horseshit, or it depends on the day what you feel about it. It's got to be one of the best, if not the best one you can get under one cover, sort of testament to the power of stories, right?
Yeah.
I was just reading the book of Esther, because I didn't know anything about it, and I was sort of curious about what's going on. Why is there a cookie named after the bad guy in this story? And the holiday of Purim seems kind of crazy. And I read it, and it's just fun. It's just a crazy sort of story. It has no God. I think the word God shows up once in it. Wow. The Bible really and truly contains multitudes, and it contradicts itself, just like Walt Whitman.
I don't know the book of Esther. My favorite book of the Bible is Job. And oddly, I hope that you have I pronounce it Mr. Job. I don't know if you said Job, but Mr. Job
yeah, it's Mr. Job.
I've got one quick question. I got two more, and then I kind of want you to read. But so you got medium son who really hero worships his big brother, big son, and I just want to know. I'm only asking this for psychological analyses. Do you have a brother, Pete?
I do not have a brother. I have a big sister who is a beautiful, intelligent, talented mother of two, Grace, who I love dearly.
I hope she's on here tonight. Okay, let me talk to you about this. So you got Mead and you got Big, but there are a slew, and by slew I don't mean. There's a slew of secondary or minor characters, but all of them are. I don't know how you did this. All these secondary or minor characters are important for pushing the novel forward. And I'd kind of like for you to talk about. I'd ask you to read about, but Chloe, who you say in the acknowledgments is, I think, kind of your wife, right?
Yes.
So Chloe's an interesting character, except she runs away a lot. I hope your wife doesn't do that. Also, Chloe is so Meat. I should mention this. Meat. I don't want to leave any. What are those things people talk about? When you say something that kind of spoils the plot. What's that easy term? Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler.
I don't want to do that, but. Okay, Mr. Job and Miss Tab kind of have this family. All their kids are named after the letter J, Joshua, whatever. And then there's Chloe, and then Mead and Big. Big remembers his parents, but Mead doesn't because he was too young. And it's kind of like a foster family, mm-hmm. right? And then Chloe's in there, and Big is so much in love with Chloe. Can you talk a little bit about that character, Chloe?
So
Where'd you come up with her?
there was a real person named Chloe Inches, which is just such a good name that I just felt.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I felt
Chloe Inches. Yeah.
Chloe,
Wow.
Chloe Inches and Job Stiles are both real names from the history of northeastern Ohio. They don't match up perfectly with the timeline, but I saw them in a history book and I was like, oh, I'm stealing that. That's too good.
Yeah, no lie. No lie.
It would be cruel to leave that lying in a smelly history book that nobody's going to look at for another 10 years. The Chloe was my clumsy attempt to write around the fact that I'm a straight white guy. That I wanted to have a female character with real agency and real power, not one that maybe was completely unrealistic to the time frame, right? But the more time I spent on it, I realized that I was kind of trapped in the brain that I have, and that I couldn't quite come up with a plausible character. And I thought back to reading a bunch of Murakami novels in my 20s. And the guy's great. He's got a thing. He has a way of telling these sort of these kind of stories that you sort of like with literally in the Wide Up Burn Chronicle, somebody kind of falls down a well and finds a whole world down there, right?
Yeah.
But all of his stories all of them have an unknowable, inscrutable, unobtainable woman. And so I wanted to sort of avoid that, and that's sort of one of the gags that she's always running away. And then, I don't know. I was just in the process. My wife and I were in the process of falling in love, and I was getting to know her, and I just sort of stole some of her unique. She has stopped running away, as far as for the time being. I sort of borrowed her, I guess her personality and her presentation a little bit for some of the.
Chloe's the first 1837 feminist. I mean, I really like Chloe a lot. I think that character is strong, knows what she wants, and does what she wants, Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about this character. Maybe my favorite character is Dog. And that's how it's, Dog, okay, spoiler alert 2. Dog is an instigator. He owns a grocery store. He sells a lot of whiskey. Mead, in the beginning of the novel, is a casket maker, a coffin maker. Ends up working at Dog's store. But Dog is still kind of hanging around. Maybe it's a specter of sorts. There's the spoiler alert. And Dog cusses a lot. Dog, I don't know if anybody on this thing has ever seen Ted Lasso. But in the TV show Ted Lasso, there's a character named Roy Kent. Dog is the Roy Kent of this novel. He cusses a lot. He says what he means. I love Dog. Is this Dad Timothy or something?
No. Dog was actually in without saying too much more. Dog was initially supposed to be a much darker, even meaner, and even more scabrous character who sort of did much. He didn't have sort of the redeeming comic side to him, and he was so fun to write. It was so fun to write this crotchety kind of. I think kind of classic American type, like the person who's so profane and unapologetically self-interested that it actually becomes a kind of purity, that they're honestly more pure of heart than a lot of sort of, church-going folks. He was so fun to write, and it was so much fun to think of horrible things for him to say, like sort of toenail curling obscenities, that I just kept bringing him back, and he kept having more stuff to do. And I really kind of just got to like him a lot. And so his plot arc just became more, I wouldn't say it's like a blast of sunshine, but it became a little bit more, there's a possibility of redemption or maybe empathy for his position.
There's a point, a lot of reviewers I've read have said, this, although this is set in 1837, it's a novel of our times. And I thought, I read it and I went, I don't know, except, I don't mean that bad. But there's a great point where I think its dog is going to do a little bit of vandalism to a bridge. First of all, there's all this stuff about we either want 2 bridges or no bridges, which kind of sounds like politics in America right now. Mm-hmm. And then there's a point where I think dog is going to vandalize a bridge, and someone says, oh, they ain't going to, there are these 2, there's Cleveland, Ohio, and there's Ohio City, Ohio, and they're going to merge. That's the whole novel is kind of about what's going to happen with these 2 places and the importance of this bridge or 2 bridges or no bridges. But there's a point where a guy goes, we'll just say that we saw people dressed like the other people. And it reminded me of, like, at one point on that January 6th crap that happened at our Capitol, it's like, those were Antifa people. Those were BLM people, and they can't. And I know you wrote this way before then, so you're kind of a soothsayer in a weird way, Pete.
I mean,
yourself on that?
When one thing that my dear grandmother Dorothy, who just turned 90, was out to dinner with a couple of her children, her adult children, who were well into their middle-aged.
Yeah.
And they got into a fight, and one of them, stalked off in tears. And I wasn't there for this piece of family lore, but I wish I had been. And without missing a beat, Grandma Dorothy turned to somebody else at the table and said, "It never, ever gets better." And that's kind of inescapable when you read a lot of American history from times that are sufficiently removed from the present to say, oh, that's like the bad old days when we had slavery and we all smelled bad and our teeth were brown and we were idiots. We're idiots to this day. Nothing ever changes. We never learn anything. And unfortunately, the politicians just live longer. That appears to be the only difference between the past and the present.
Talk about, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, Tom Todd.
Tom Todd.
Yeah.
That started as honestly just a writing exercise where I was going to try to think of a bad guy, and he's
very suave.
He's very suave. Yeah. There was this great. This will probably not come as a surprise to anybody who's read the book. I watched a lot of professional wrestling when I was a kid, and I thought it was the greatest, the coolest thing. I remember somebody told me it was fake. I said, I don't care. That only makes it better. And there was this guy named Ravishing Rick Rude, who was a heel in the parlance, and he was hilarious and loathsome and very, sort of, he kind of looked like Tom Selleck, sort of handsome, but a little bit sort of brutish.
More.
Yeah. And that sort of character, somebody has Ravishing Rick's autograph. That is, I'm sure, like so many wrestlers, he's probably met a untimely fate. But I was sort of trying to channel a little bit of that, like wrestling heel sort of charisma for a bad guy. And I realized he had to have great clothes. He needed to be sort of visually distinct so that people in the cheap seats could recognize him. And he had to be sort of just, over the top, sort of a cartoon character in a book that's full of completely over the top cartoon characters.
Yeah, they really talk about. Also, this is a psychological thing. As a child, Pete, did you worry about the night pigs? There are night pigs play a crucial role in this novel, and at a point, I don't think this is a spoiler alert. Meade says, I want to be famous. I want to be in this almanac for doing something good for my community. I'm going to vanish our town of the night pigs that come out at night and fuck up everybody's yard and eat their cats or whatever. But night pigs, and then there were man-sized weasels. Which when I first read about man-sized weasels, I thought about this writer here named Lewis Norden. I don't know if you know Lewis Norden wrote Wolf Whistle and Music of the Swamp, but in a lot of his books, he's got the rats were the size of collies. He's got that a bunch. So when I came across man-sized weasels, I went, oh man, this is so good. Just made that crap up, or were you
No, that's honestly, the night pigs are just a very thinly disguised reference to the Gospels.
Really?
When it happens, I think, in all three synoptic Gospels. So in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Christ goes to a place called Gadara. And there in Gadara, there is either, depending on which gospel you read, there is either a madman or madmen who are among the tombs, wandering naked in their fallen, possessed state. And the miracle that Christ does at Gadara is that he takes the demons out of the possessed, and he puts them into a herd of pigs. And the pigs are, of course, very possessed by the demons, and they run straight away into the water and drown. So the story of what happens to Mead and this little incident in the book happens in a cemetery at night, and it culminates with Mead walking naked downhill, covered in pig shit, to the river, where some plot events sort of unfold. Is a lot of this book is actually a meditation on like celebrity and fame and what we need from the people that we worship. And I don't exempt Christ from that. I think a lot of his gospels, a lot of the story of the Bible, and certainly a lot of what's happened in Christianity ever since then is a lesson in what it does to you when you rely on a person or an idea to be your sun, moon, and stars. It has a cost. Some people would say the cost is worth it. Most days I wake up and I think it is. But yeah, that incident is sort of Mead running into, I guess, the Holy Ghost.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know any of that backstory. So now I got to goddamn read the whole novel again to figure it out. Hey, will you read some from it?
Sure. Just so y'all know, it's mostly jokes. There's not that much serious shit.
Oh, what? Yeah.
So Big Sun is sort of he's kind of he's a superhero. He would fit right into the various cinematic universes that are polluting our culture waves right now. He wrestles Lake Erie to get it to behave. He digs canals. He single-handedly puts out house fires and fells forests, right? I'm going to tell you a little bit about what wrestles the devil
twice and beats him 3 times.
Exactly, right? I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Big Sun's left him wanting. Big's feat gone on in this general way for years. My brother proved himself a foremost spirit of the times. You are familiar with how a spirit of the times done. Tamed bears, wrestled the Pope of Rome, romanced queens and milkmaids, half horse and half alligator and another half Wolverine set on top, etc. In truth, Big did not meet the Pope any and never seen any queens. It's only a matter of talking. Pope or no, my brother wore red pepper at Sunday supper. You know how red pepper tastes. Loud and foolish. My brother has got quieter flavors to him as well. Tenderness, cussedness, and tragedy, as I promised. I will say these directly. But I must do a bit more mumbling before I put down the tales. I do not wish to sell you, my brother, to recite him like a newspaper advertisements, to sweat over him like a tent preacher. Although I do believe I could make a decent merchant for him as a foremost spirit of the times. But he is not an article of merchandise. Although, when I grease my mind some, I consider a spirit is alike to an article of merchandise. If you will permit wider talk, every age and place has got its big sons. Folks who hang the sky that we shelter under, stand up the timbers of a place. Some of the timbers is timbers and others is more like ideas. The spirits of the time make a place more than Connecticut surveyors and maps do. There was Courthouse Shad of Painesville who put law on the blizzards and bargained them into a treaty. They could snow the town to the waist 4 months a year so long as they behaved the rest. In Conneaut, it were Finland Pete who dug a harbor with one belch. In Newburgh, you had Wagon Face, a fascination whose face were wider than tall. He had ears as round as wheels. I cannot remember what feats Wagon Face done, but I know that he were responsible somehow for the watermill down that way. In Worcester, Dorothy Fangs, who could outwork a dozen menfolk to dying and bury them without mussing her apron. The Ohio country had got spirits like the wood has panthers, more heard of than seen. But when you did see them, you recollected it all your life. I do not say that these were all true spirits, but neither does that make them false. You never saw Boone or Crockett or Fink or Billy Earthquake Esquire either, and they are in the newspapers and almanacs. I have distracted myself. As I've begun to tell, the promise, tenderness, cussedness, and tragedy related to whether my brother were a merchant or merchandise or both. You will agree that a candy tastes sweeter when you steal it. There is a different taste for the storekeeper you stole from. Progress requires fetching more than you paid for a thing. Now consider my brother as a trader. Recollect his first great offering of 9 years before. His Sunday promise to clear ground for a city among the western trees. The flea folks had only laughed at his offer to clear the woods in 2 days and a night, and they went to bed still grinning at the jackass idea. But they woke to see that Big had done it. Their mouths forgot how they had laughed and spoke poor of my brother, and went to licking their teeth over the good land. Thousands of acres to husband on, build on, live on, buy and sell on. Big spread out his hands and said to them, "Go ahead." Not one soul thought about his open and empty palms as they ran to claim lots. Big did not think of his empty palms either. It were enough for him to be wondered at and adored. In the Gospels, you never hear Christ doing carpenter work for wages. On the question of hard money, he only holds up a coin and says, "This hasn't got my name on it any," and pitches it into the waters of Jordan. When Christ were borrowing Simon Peter's fish boat, I wonder if he were scooping up that same coin to do the trick on a fresh crowd of folks. I do not mean to call Christ a swindler, only that making folks credence takes theater grease, and it would have been costly to throw coins all day long. It is putting-minded talking to my brother and Christ in the same breath. It is grabbing after the lowest branch. It is lazy work. I forgive myself. We have just got these ideas scratched into our brains. You would not trust Christ to run a bank, though. He would dump out all your money for the sick and weary-hearted. At first, Big did not mind his empty palms. Not when he whipped a lake, nor when he lied to the devil, stalked the deepest woods, hog-tied panthers, drained jugs, got stung by 1,000 hornets and only smiled, cut roads, moved the mouth of the Cuyahoga, dug a canal, drained 20 swamps, rescued 100 widows and several married men besides. He's got more feats than you have got ears to hear, and he never asked a penny for them. And besides, what have you and your ears to pay for such a thing? What is the correct price of such merchandise? And so Big came to live on adoration, by slaps on his back, by refreshment, by the flock of small fry that imitated him, and by other folks' wonder. This arrangement were considered settled in ink by the citizens of Ohio City and Cleveland. The tenderness, cussedness, and tragedy come when Big decided it were not enough to be wondered at.
Man. I love that line about candy's always sweeter when it's stolen. That's a great line. Trump gave me some bad flashbacks, but that's another story. Good reading, man. Thanks, Pete. Hey, tell me this. So you're from Ohio and you live in Alabama. Let's talk about the difference. How are you doing in I've been to Ohio. I've been to a lot of Ohio. My little coffee mug here is from Akron. What's the difference? Any difference in these parts of America besides the barbecue? I know it's better in Alabama.
Food's better here. The winter's nicer. People are a little bit politer and kinder. But honestly, there might be more Confederate flags in Ohio than there are in Tuscaloosa right now. Once you get, as a friend of mine likes to say, if you're south of I-80, you're in the South. I grew up in a suburb of a big old, industrial city, basically a little college town that had kind of gotten swallowed up by suburban sprawl. It was a great place to grow up, and I have a lot of fondness for the sort of cultural trappings of Ohio. It's a great place. It's doing a lot better economically than it was when I was a kid. Alabama is actually, Birmingham in particular reminds me a lot of Cleveland. It's an old steel town that's sort of bottomed out and sort of bouncing back and doing okay. The living in Tuscaloosa is really interesting because the history is really close to the surface. It's really, really close to the surface. George might have lost his power for a second, but I'll just keep blabbing.
Really?
And
am I gone?
Your voice is still there, so it'll probably bounce back.
Okay, I can see myself. Okay, go ahead.
The history is really close to the surface, but there have been some attempts to kind of paper over or kick some dirt over stuff. So here in downtown Tuscaloosa, I just noticed this today. I walked past a big Alabama state history plaque celebrating the brave university students who helped protect Tuscaloosa from the Yankees in 1865. They didn't do a great job. The Yankees burned down most of the city, but and the plaque is 20 feet from this clock that is actually the site that was Tuscaloosa's whipping post for recalcitrant slaves. Mm-hmm. There's no marker for that. Because of, money and politics and the presence of a big university, there's sort of a few different Tuscaloosas. I really like it. It's a very comfortable place to live. And I have really been enjoying kind of sticking around long enough to realize what parts of the Southern mythos are just total horseshit, and sort of seeing past the scrim a little bit to the really good stuff. To get to spend time down in Hale County, which is where in the northern imagination, that's just let us now praise famous men. It's just sort of gawking at poverty and stuff like that, and to take that version of Hale County and compare it to like the documentary movie Hale County This Morning, Hale County This Evening, which was nominated for an Oscar a couple years ago, which is just an absolutely psychedelic, mind-blowing piece of glacially paced, visually sumptuous, non-narrative genius. I mean, it's just like putting your brain in a warm bath. It's so awesome. I don't know. I really have a lot of love in my heart for Alabama, and I like being down here. I can't pass for Southern yet, but I do feel like I have a scintilla of credibility when I use y'all in the second person plural. I can pull it off.
next time you're in Birmingham, go to this place called Sloss Furnace, SL.
Oh yeah.
And it's a great. When you're talking about Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Steel Belt, all that. I mean, this is a great mining kind of area, but also they have good punk bands play in that.
Yeah.
Kind of cavern down there.
Yeah.
Fun.
You can get married there. You can have like a steampunk wedding in the furnaces.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Man. Hey, does anybody have any questions? I don't know where we're about 45 minutes. It may be too late. Jackie.
Hey.
Oh, Jackie, you're back from the bathroom. Good.
I haven't moved, as you can see.
I know. I'm fucking with you.
You know you can't move when a cat's on your lap. It's a rule.
No, that is facts.
It's like a very distinct rule.
Look at that cat.
So she'll sit here all day if I sit here all day. We don't have any questions popping up yet. That was a really fun conversation. I really enjoyed the character studies that you guys were doing, because I noticed when I was reading a little bit about it, just kind of the number of characters and how multifaceted each of them were. So it was really fun to hear you talk a little bit more about that. Thanks.
Let's do something fun.
All right.
You know, when I came up to pick up Pete's book to read, I opened it up and there was this beautiful bookmark in here. Let's see where that is. Of course, I've lost it. You know, Hub City bookshop. Y'all had been. This is the Hub City cap. So this is their great book. This bookmark. But also, as I was reading, I came across something else in this book that I would like to offer for anybody who's not associated with Hub City. I will give this to the first question.
George, I was trying to hide because you said no.
What is this called? It's a gift card. First question, gift card. You have to give Jackie your address, and I'll mail you this gift card, which I imagine is for more than $1. I don't know what it's worth, but it's more than $1, right?
It's for $30, and we offered it to George because we like to offer our In Conversation partners something, and he refused.
Very kind.
So I hid it in the book.
Judy Caldwell wins this. So Judy Caldwell, you have to give Jackie. I'll take it to her so I don't have anybody's address because nobody wants me to know where they live. So I'll give it to her and put a stamp on it and we'll mail it. So Judy, what's the question? Pete, do you have a playlist of songs you listen to when you're writing this book?
Oh, you know it. I put together.
Don't you say something like, don't say Mozart or something smart. Give me,
The honest truth is, I actually can't listen to music with lyrics when I write, but when I revise, I can listen to stuff that's a little bit more rock and roll. And the title of the book is actually, it's as much a nod to the REM song Cuyahoga as it is to the Cuyahoga River. Let me find my playlist. I gave it to Scribner back. Oh, there it is. It's I try to avoid using Spotify because it seems like they're, these Silicon Valley, they're Swedish or whatever sort of people who are stealing money from artists and stuff like that. But I used it for this one time to make a playlist for the book that I am now attempting to locate. There
you know what? I've been mispronouncing the damn time. I've always heard that river called Cuyahoga because of friggin' REM.
It is either it's whatever you want it to be. It's there depending on what part of Cleveland you're from. It's Cuyahoga. You can do anything. There used to be a sort of old folklore saying that people on one side, on the east side, said Cuyahoga, and people on the west side said Cuyahoga. I am a dyed-in-the-wool west side of Clevelander, so of course I say Cuyahoga.
Okay, good. It's kind of like that river in Philadelphia called it's unspellable and unpronounceable called like the Skoogle.
Yeah, the
I
Skoikle.
how the fuck to say that, but yeah.
I'm gonna I'll put the playlist in the
chat room.
Yeah. There we go. Perfecting one of the things about teaching, which is otherwise a banned subject, has taught me that I have to be able to like talk and use my brain while also simultaneously answering an email and helping 18-year-olds figure out how their computers work. But yeah, I did listen to a lot of music. I think there's definitely that REM track, some great old Cleveland soul music, the Minutemen, Woody Guthrie, a song that I shamelessly kind of ripped off for part of that passage I just read, Guided by Voices, straight out of Dayton, the Dead Boys, another great Cleveland punk band, Lucinda Williams, gotta have it.
Stiff Baders from the Dead Boys. Man,
yep. Yeah.
Who's that? Oh, yeah, and the Minutemen. Okay, that now you're in my territory. I like those. I like the Minutemen a lot. Really sad story about.
Very sad.
What's his name? Died in that van accident. Yeah.
I wanted to name a kid D. Boone, but my wife said that was not appropriate, which is probably correct.
For anybody who doesn't know the Minutemen, their maybe first album had about 60 songs in 45 minutes. I mean, it's just really, really fast punk songs.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm done with that.
And there's an excellent documentary called We Jam at Kano about the Minutemen and sort of their story.
Yeah.
Totally worth an hour.
I love that question about the playlist. That was a really, really cool question, Judy.
Where's Judy Caldwell from? She sent you her address yet?
Not yet. I asked her to email me.
Okay, good.
Greensboro. There she goes. She's on it.
All right.
Oh, good. Good.
And I think she's the one that had kids and a dog in her lap earlier. Yep. Judy.
And I used to live in Greensboro for 2 years, two wonderful years.
So I have a question. I don't see any other questions from the audience. Do you mind if I ask a question?
No, jump in, please.
Okay. So your cover is one of the more unique ones that we have in the shop. And I was wondering if you had any part in the cover. I know that normally the publisher kind of designs it with the author's input, or if you had like a specific vision for it.
So I did play a role in it in the extent that there was an initial version, and I worked in publishing for a long time, and so I know that cover design is really tricky because you have to get a lot of kind of stakeholders to sign off. It's got to work for marketing. The editor has to like it. The author has to like it. The agent has to like it. Just random executives who exist to make things harder have to like it. And Scribner, who are delightful and wonderful, love them, showed me a really cool cover that just wasn't what I had in mind. And so I did what any uptight Midwesterner would do, which is pretended I liked it really hard for 2 weeks. And then finally I just said to my editor, like, Kathy, I don't think this is it. And she's like, oh, well, we had the runner up, and she showed me this. And I said, this is awesome. You go, let's make that the cover. Yeah, it's really cool. The guy who made it is named Matt Dorfman, and it's actually the original sort of underlying image is from like an 1890s newspaper illustration from like a Punch magazine type thing that he just did this awesome sort of illustration to sort of like make the multiple lumberjacks. And from the second I saw it, I was like, yes, 1,000 times yes. I have a giant poster of it over here.
Oh, cool.
It's a great cover.
It just seems to suit his like larger than life personality. I love it.
Yeah, no, I am eternally grateful to the designer and to Scribner's art department and everybody, because it's a really cool cover. It's like every time I see my book, I'm like, dang, that's a cool cover. Of course, I had nothing to do with making it, but it does have my name. Yeah.
I'm so happy for you because my last publisher put a bunch of dogs on my cover. And I said, I don't want a bunch of fucking dogs on my cover.
We're awful,
kidding.
I know.
I'm kidding. I love that cover.
Yeah, no, I honestly, and I just got to say, I'm a fan of Hub City.
Thanks.
Yeah, I am too.
You guys are cool. It's a cool project. You got great taste. Like Ashley Jones's Reparations Now just came out. That it's like in the mail to me. I cannot wait to read it. So I'm frankly pretty proud of myself for hanging out with y'all. Quality hang.
Well,
yeah,
thank you.
Hub City's turned out to be the publisher of the New South. I mean, if I had nothing to fucking do with Hub City, I'd go. Well, when I didn't have anything to do with Hub City, I went, y'all doing the right thing. Way to go. You know, and it's a tough goddamn business. I mean, that's just a hard road to hoe.
Yeah, it's a mean,
as you know,
business.
As you know from being in, University Press. God damn, come on, University Presses. That's so hard to do that and get people to pay attention as they should.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of publishing that I try to keep my antenna tuned towards. Obviously, when Scribner said they wanted to publish my book, I said, sure, yeah, of course, that sounds great. But I love, just thrills me to no end to see good indie publishing that's sustainable and
yeah.
So we have.
What about that Mia woman who's? I think she's on our. She seems to be a scallywag.
Nah, Mia's good, folks. She's legit.
Kidding.
One of the good ones.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
She says hi.
Hi, Mia.
There's one last question in there. Would you mind answering that?
No, not at all.
From
so
Brent.
I teach English 101, which is just freshman comp, and I also teach American literature too, which are really fun to teach, especially American literature. It's really just kind of talking about literature that I love. And freshman comp is, sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating, but it's really fun to kind of help deprogram students to make them realize that writing is not actually torture. As far as the writing goes, right now I'm not writing a whole lot because I have a little baby and a job that I just started doing again. But I'm looking forward to hopefully in a couple of weeks getting back in my groove of writing for an hour and a half every morning. And the only piece of writing advice I will ever give is, other than get a comfy chair, is to get a laptop and rip the Wi-Fi card out of it. It's the best $400 I ever spent in my life.
Yeah.
It's distraction free.
I agree. Did you ever write short stories?
Nope.
Were you one of those people who so never?
I have one published short story in this. That's it.
Really?
Yeah.
What chapter is it?
Oh, no. There's no, I published one short story that was the first about a bunch of guys with leaf blowers.
I got you.
Yeah.
I thought you said I have one short story in this.
No, yeah. My brain does not, I have a hard time working on, I don't know. Once I get something going, I kind of like to hold on to it for a long time and make it really weird.
Yeah.
Anything else coming, Pete?
Yeah, I'm working on something very slowly. It's going to be, I'm sure, what little hair I have left will be gone by the time I actually finish it. But it's similar, but in the same sort of vein. Yeah, I don't really know what it is yet, but it'll be entertaining. If you've seen the movie UHF, it has a similar plot to that right now.
Is it a historical novel?
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that. What I always do is write and say, well, my work will be historical in time. You know, like in 100 fucking years, someone will say, "Oh yeah, that's what happened in 2015." It's tough.
It's an interesting challenge to try to create a plausible picture of the past, of course, which of course is nothing. You have no way of ever holding it up against the real thing and knowing what it's like. But it's a fun challenge to go digging for enough sort of texture.
Thank you.
Well, I got nothing else here, Jackie. Pete, you got anything else?
No, I think we did an awesome job.
You
I
did.
do too. I hope everybody had fun.
Yeah.
Hey, well, no, I do have one thing to say. There's a little button here. Let me see my glasses. It says "Buy Pete's book." I wish you would buy Pete's book from Hub City Press. And the reason why I wish that is because I want to go down to Hub City Press for a number of years from now. I figure I got another 3 years in my life, but I want to go down there and see the bookstore fucking open. So that's it. That's my, and also I want everybody to get off my lawn. But that's another story.
Amen.
You guys are awesome. Thank you for the shout outs to Hub City. I really appreciate that. I put links to Pete's website, Pete's book, and George's most recent book, which would bring you to the Hub City Press titles like Reparations Now that Pete mentioned. So anyway, I hope you guys will check out their books. They're awesome. We have signed book plates on the way from Pete, I believe, I'm probably going to not pronounce the title of your book right. I don't think I did it earlier.
Well, I didn't do it the whole time. So now it's Kaya Baba or something.
Long as your credit card clears, I don't care what you call it.
Just buy the book, right?
Yep. Buy it.
All right, guys, you were awesome. I really appreciate the great conversation and you both taking the time to join us. It means the world to us, and it really helps keep our audiences engaged and keep our doors open and all the important things. And you guys have been a really big part of that. So,
Pete, I hope we run into each other at some point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got to get out to Spartanburg. All right. Thanks, George. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, man.
Yo.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.